he had three priorities in life. Number one, he said our priority should be our personal health. And under that category, it was spiritual, physical, and mental health.
You ever seen those people, they eat good and they look fit, but they just look bad, stressed out. They've got like this frown on their face that you just can't pinpoint it. Well, that's because they live in a world of stress.
We're excited tonight to give a platform to J. Michael Smith. He's one of the most amazing gentlemen I've ever met. Tonight's all about longevity, and it's all about the art of aging gracefully. And this is your blurb, J. Michael, but at 72, focusing on longevity is not merely about adding years to your life, but to life to years. It's a holistic approach that requires dedication to mental acuity, physical health, and spiritual contentment. By nurturing these aspects, J. Michael Smith has enjoyed his senior years with vigor and purpose, and a deep appreciation for life's journey. As he continues to embrace each day with a proactive mindset towards health and wellness, he is reminded that age is but a number, and it is the richness of our experiences that truly defines our years.
Thank you, Gillian, very, very much. And thanks to everyone. It's an honor to be here. And thanks for the invite to share my story tonight on longevity. And yes, I do feel vibrant at 72. Well, back up just a bit about my background. I grew up in a military family. My dad was in the Air Force. And by the time I had graduated from high school, we had lived in 6 states, Europe, and Africa. So my first 18 years of life was traveling around the world and living in different cultures, different foods, and I thought it an amazing education for me. And I actually thrived on that growth. And we did move. I went to 2 high schools in 2 states. But anyway, that's how I started my life's journey. And in high school, as I said, I did play sports. In my 20s, I still thought, I'm not worried about longevity in my 20s, but I still started to look and see what happened. In my 30s, early 30s, I had gone to University of Houston and got a degree in hotel restaurant management. And I was managing some restaurants. It was a small private company of independent restaurants. And the company was bought by a national guy by the name of Norman Brinker. And the company actually the restaurants were Chili's. And after Norman Brinker bought it, as you know, or if you're familiar, he went to, my gosh, multiple brands and thousands of restaurants. But I'm in my early 30s. And he had a philosophy for his management team. And he preached it constantly, and he lived it. And because the restaurant business is hard, a lot of hours, and open 7 days a week, occasionally closed on Christmas, but some restaurants were open on Christmas. Anyway, his philosophy in life and for making sure his managers stayed healthy and productive was he had 3 priorities in life. Number one, he said our priority should be our personal health. And under that category, it was spiritual, physical, and mental health. Number 2 was your family. Number 2, and interesting that he put family number 2, but his thought was, if you're not physically healthy, you can't take care of your family. And number 3 was the business. He put the business 3rd on the list as far as our priorities. And in fact, in our compensation program, he had an allowance to join a gym, and the company paid the membership to a gym. And since my early 30s, I have always had a membership at a gym. And so I lived that philosophy. We preached that philosophy to our management staff and our assistant managers, and as we grew. In my later 30s, I moved to Hawaii and started my own restaurant. And it was a journey. It was a decision. I had a wife and an 18-month-old son, but I took that philosophy of those three priorities with me to Hawaii, which is a healthy state to begin with. And kind of like where you live right now, Gillian, it's just natural. It's naturally healthy. We had papaya trees, kiwi trees, avocado trees, mango trees, guava in our neighborhood. You can just go pick and eat from. And we exercised. And I had a gym membership. So in my 30s, I'm still, not thinking in terms of living to 100. I'm thinking of living and raising my son. I'm still at that mentality of just working and enjoying life. And as we move into my 40s and 50s, that's when I starting to take a look at the holistic alternative to maintaining a healthy body so I could still do what I was trying to do and raise a family and build a business. We ended up building and operating 6 restaurants in Hawaii and Colorado, and lived in Colorado for a while too, and was going back and forth between Colorado and Hawaii, but always maintaining that balance between physical, spiritual, and mental health. Mental health, I read constantly. I'm always have a book on my nightstand or in my office. I read probably 2 books a month, maybe. Some months I read 3 books, 3 or 4 books. In a year, I'm reading a lot of books. And I read across genres of business and philosophy and history. I love history. And so I'm always keeping my mind sharp. And then in the physical, as I said, I've always had a gym membership, go to the gym 5 to 6 days a week. And that's evolved too in my story of my 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and now my 70s. In my 70s, my gym routine is drastically different than it was in my 40s and 50s. And it's totally different. And because my body has evolved, I am older. I can't do 50-pound dumbbells anymore and do 10 reps with 50-pound dumbbells like I could in my 40s and 50s. Now I'm using 15-pound dumbbells and doing more reps. But it has evolved, and it's been an education. I've had trainers, I've had mentors. And Norman Brinker was my first mentor, not even knowing it in my 30s, to teach me the power of living a healthy lifestyle, of keeping yourself physically fit, mentally sharp, and spiritually. And spiritually, I am involved in a lot of nonprofits. My wife and I are involved in community events here. We volunteer a lot at the church. We do studies. We're in the midst of 2 studies right now with some friends. So we maintain our spirituality, our meditation, also very early in the morning primarily, but throughout the day. So we keep that balance going. But that's kind of really how I do it. As I said, it didn't evolve overnight. And now you use the word wisdom, Gillian. In my 70s, now I do think the wisdom I have was how things have evolved over the last 4 or 5 decades. And things have changed. Dr. Roni knows this. Changes that made in the medical field made some drastic changes in alternative functional medicine, integrative medicine, just in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years. It's just, we were blessed, Judy and I, my wife, to have a group of doctors that we work with and see, and we have built a dynamic relationship with them. It's not, they know us personally. Every January, we do our blood work and get all our test work done and have a physical every January. But it's extensive, and we've had to educate our PAs and RNs and my primary doctor to do these extra studies, extra blood work. In other words, I like to know, Dr. Roni might appreciate this, in my 70s, the value of omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. But as you know, Dr. Roni, your ratio in America can get out of whack. And I want to know what the ratio is between my 6 and my 3. And normally in America, the 6 is way up here and the 3s are way down here. And many Americans are deficient in 3. And I was when I found out. This was a few years ago. So I had that sort of checked every day, every month, or every year. Also, I have my D checked once a year. Some things that average doctors don't just do for whatever reason. And so I have my, I do a microbiome check once a year to find out just what bacteria are living in my microbiome or living in my gut. And it's a detailed, I get a 4-page report from the company that does that test for me. But that's what I've learned that in my late 60s, 70s. I didn't do that. I didn't even know about it in my 40s and 50s. So that's kind of how I've evolved. I'm going to end my story with an important story, probably the biggest story for me and my wife. Being healthy and fit at 72, it doesn't protect us necessarily from illnesses. We're still going to get sick. And I had a challenge this past November and December. I caught bacteria pneumonia, and it was a serious, serious case. I don't know where I caught it, but the bacteria was growing so rapidly they could not. I was taken by ambulance to the ER, and the first 24 to 30 hours were kind of critical for me because they didn't know what was going on. They were testing, they were doing blood work. I was in intensive care, and they couldn't get ahead of the bacteria. It was growing so rapidly in my lungs. I was on 9 meters of oxygen. I had IVs in both arms with, unfortunately, antibiotics going through both arms. And at around the second day or the second evening, I learned some of this in hindsight, or I was told this later. They were trying to determine if they were going to send me to ICU from intensive care because my respiratory was so bad. About 11 o'clock the second night in intensive care, they wake me up and tell me they're moving me. And I'm thinking, okay. Well, I ended up moving to a private room, not the ICU. And it was days later, as the doctors said I'm improving and getting better, still a struggle for me. I was in the hospital for 18 days. Doctors and nurses and some of the respiratory therapists told me, we were amazed at your age how healthy and fit your body is, your immune system, all your blood markers were off the charts high and perfect. And we thought you were going to, on average, a 72-year-old with what you had almost automatically went to ICU. But you didn't. You came down here. And the point being is you're a very healthy 72-year-old. You just happen to have a very serious lung condition. And so I thought about that a lot after I got out of the hospital, in hindsight, that maintaining a healthy lifestyle is so critical. And I start preaching now, or advocating now, to my friends and teams like on shows like this. Don't start in your 30s, 40s. Don't wait till you get 65 and you turn around and you realize you're overweight. You realize you're eating a lot of the typical American lifestyle diet. Do it in your 30s and 40s. Judy and I have cut out sugar. We don't eat processed foods. We eat primarily all organic foods now, and range-free eggs. And so we've made that was evolving into our 70s. So at the point is on longevity. I don't see any reason that I'm not going to live to 82 or 92 and perhaps 102. We don't know how long we're going to live, but I'm going to maintain this lifestyle. So whatever age I'm at, I'm able to be active. I'm able to go out and walk and go out and ride a bike. And we stay real active. In fact, right now, one of the things I did during the pandemic, I redid my office, which I'm in right now, and I got one of these desks that go up and down. So I'm standing up right now. I don't sit here at this desk very much. I think I was on a Zoom with some of you this morning. I was sitting down. It's early in the morning. So I raise and lower this desk all day long and make sure I'm standing much more and I can move my legs. I haven't gotten to where I've got it sitting on a ball for my chair, but I'm thinking, Judy keeps telling me, Mike, we ought to get you a balance ball to sit on at that desk. But I haven't gone that far yet. But that's kind of my story. I'd love to, if you have any questions on things I did throughout these years, at the gym this afternoon, I really maintain and ask a lot of questions. I occasionally will get a trainer. After my bout in the hospital, I was blessed to be able to have some very good physical therapists who knew my condition and really helped me go from on oxygen 24/7 and could hardly walk. I lost a tremendous amount of muscle when I was in the hospital, so I'm on the process of rebuilding muscle in my body. But I feel blessed that I have maintained a healthy lifestyle that has carried me through 72 wonderful years on this God's green earth. So
We used to say body, mind, and spirit, but now we say mind, body, and spirit because it literally starts with your mind. You have a great mind, and you're not going to be healthy physically all by itself without your mind, because it's your mind that says eat healthy, feel good, less stressed. It starts with your mind, right? And then the physical body follows, and then spirituality means everything to the whole. And that's what it sounds like you've done for all your life since the time that you left your parents. So I always believe that it starts with good nutrition. However, it's not just good nutrition. I want to talk a little bit about the mind, okay? A lot. You ever seen those people, they eat good and they look fit, but they just look bad, stressed out. They've got like this frown on their face that you just can't pinpoint it. Well, that's because they live in a world of stress. And with that, there's certain hormones, those happy hormones are gone because happy hormones make you look good and feel good. But those stress hormones, they dehydrate you. It puts in oxidative stress so that you have to have way too many antioxidants, right? So everything has to start with good hormones. We've got that epinephrine. I can't tell you, epinephrine kills, okay? People don't understand that. Someone who's always like in that run, fight, flight mode, they look bad because their mind has taken over their physical body. How do you exercise without having a physical, good, healthy mind? And that other science about growth hormones, and that testosterone and the estrogen. People don't realize you can't have good hormones and peptides without good nutrition. That starts with the mind, so metabolism. How do you just wake up and just say, I'm going to go exercise, get my metabolism up? You know what? Your mind is healthy. And it says, I must exercise every day so that I can feel good, bring in those happy hormones. And then the other thing that our mind does for us is tell us when to stop and when not to overdo it. Because I've seen some anorexias, I've seen them. We look at them, and because they're thin, we say, we no longer accept being just thin. You got to look healthy at the same time that you're thin, right? You got to have a good color to yourself. You have to have a good attitude. You have to have good posture and everything. All of that comes with healthy mind, body, and spirit. So congratulations, but it all starts right there. Mm-hmm. And that's what I heard you say.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Roni. Thank you so much. One thing I think you talk about nutrition, one thing I didn't mention, back in when I moved to Hawaii, I'm now 37 years of age. When I moved to Hawaii and into my early 40s, nutrition was started to becoming a big part. My body was changing in my 40s, and nutrition. And I can't remember who inspired me in this, who even I talked to, but I started supplementing even in my 40s. And I was a gold card member at GNC. It's a nutrition company that you see in all the malls. used to anyway. GNC was one of the biggest national vitamin stores. So I started studying and learning and from a mental standpoint and supplementing because I did have a lot of stress as a new business. You know, the stress of owning a restaurant versus managing a restaurant was much higher than I had anticipated. It was one of my first things that happened those first few years in Maui was, oh gosh, did I make a mistake? I had a great job, great future, secure job, and I come over here and open my own cafe, and I've got a child, a baby, and so I started. But I was aware of it, and that was a good thing. I had a good, great wife that was supporting me, and so nutrition, right, even from my 40s, and evolved too. And as I got older, I started doing a lot of study on supplementation. And I know, Roni, you've talked a lot about supplementation too. I started understanding that that is key too, but also the quality of the supplements, and it's evolved to, and what I take in my 70s is different than what I took in my 40s because my body doesn't produce digestive enzymes like it did in my prime. So I need to take a digestive enzyme supplement because I'm not producing them as much as I used to. That was just, I'd like to just want to toss that in too. That was a transition 40s, 50s, and 60s, and now into of taking supplementation to supplement that quality nutrition that I mentioned Judy and I eat on a regular basis.
That's very important that you're mentioning that because one day I'll do a session on, your supplementation is different in your 60s and 70s than it was in your 40s and 50s. I'm in my 60s, so my supplements are completely different.
Oh,
I didn't like the fact that I had to add some bentine, pepsin, digestive enzyme because I wasn't breaking down everything. But that's the truth of the matter is that we have to go with whatever our metabolism is telling us to do. And we have to learn over time that you're absolutely right about omega-3. We in this country, we are very deficient in omega-3. We do have a lot of omega-9 and omega-6. I mean, we have those gurus out there on YouTube talking about omega-9, olive oil every day, all day long. And we just, we got enough omega-9. We need some omega-3. But, we live in a world of over communication and we got to be careful. So it's always about personalized medicine. That's what I practice, personalized medicine. What you take in your body is completely different from what I'm going to take in my body. And it all starts with blood work, nutrition, and, we even look at the metals today.
Oh, yes, that was another thing.
Some of us have way too many metals and we're not digesting anything at that point.
Well, think about this. I had a metal check. Unfortunately, it came out okay because of living in Hawaii for over 20 years, actually over 25 years I lived in Hawaii. We ate a lot of fish from the ocean and full of metals. And so we ate way more fish than I do now because we were living it, eating fresh fish, eating raw fish. And so I'm thinking, somebody told me, man, you better have, this was just recently, a couple of years ago, you should have your metals checked. Check to see if you have any metals in your body. And, fortunately, I did not. So, but
yeah, but good for you because you probably was always strong, and that hospitalization told you, okay, now it's time to up my immunity. Hope you're on the transfer factor. You got to get on that because that's going to absolutely recognize the pathogen before it get there. It creates apoptosis, so that I've even increased my immunity supplements. Because I never want to be in a situation where I get sick first, so I listen to everybody and I listen to their stories and I go, oh, I better start doing this because I'm almost there. So, and a lot of people, they'll ask me, well, how do you do all the things you do and look the way you look? And I tell them, I said, literally, not that I don't have stress, but I do, but I don't call it that, right? I just say, I have a lot to do. I'll give it another name because I never want to feed myself the possibility that I may be having stress and I'm increasing the epinephrine in my body or cortisol. So what I do is I balance that out with, the 3 principles of not trying to feed into those negative terms. And I've always been like that. My daughter tells me I have something called selective memory. Bad things happen to us, in our family. I was always the one that didn't remember any of it. Everybody else will still be crying about it, talking about it, praying about it. And I go, what happened? So I don't take it in and internalize it and throw it upside down and make the world crazy and make myself crazy. So we all have to study the principles of what makes us whole, right? I call them. We all have that different ways of making us whole. What makes me whole is high nutrition, good walking. I don't get on the gym like you. I'm sure I don't do muscles and stuff like that, but I do walk a lot, and I know how to limit stress. I think I'm an expert at that.
As I too, Ronnie, have really changed my resistance training though. But one of the things in the hospital, 18 days in the hospital, I lost almost 25 pounds. And
Oof.
unfortunately, 80% of that, maybe 90, was muscle. And that's just because I was in a hospital bed and my legs
Yeah,
from here, and so now I am rebuilding muscle, but I'm doing it with a physical therapist and building it the right way. So
good for you. Good for you.
one last thing, my dad, he lived to be 91, and when he was in his late 80s, he was at the gym doing resistance training, very light weights, but resistance training. And Judy uses bands now. She loves the bands, and she can sit there and watch TV and do bands with the resistance training. So I think resistance training is important throughout your life too.
Yes, it is. It's absolutely amazing. And also, I think a lot of people, they overreact when most of my clients, they overreact when I say, well, you got to exercise more, eat less. And because I know that's what the traditional allopathic doctors say. And what I'm really saying is that you have to do it naturally. Like my grandmother, she died at 100. She didn't know what a gym was or anything like that. She died 15 years ago, but it was at 100, 20 years ago. I don't even know anymore. But the point is, I'm trying to make it, she had muscles. And
Yes.
she didn't work out. She was always lifting things, running up and down the stairs and out in her yard, with the vegetables, pulling the vegetables and pulling the horse and buggy, whatever it was. But she had muscles and she was strong. She would pick up huge boxes. She was a tiny woman too, huge boxes. But that was a normal lifestyle for them back then. No one said, "Oh, you got to go to the gym." No, you got to stay fit. For staying fit means movement all the time, lifting all the time.
Standing instead of sitting.
Standing, exactly. It was just natural for them.
Yeah.
Our kids are in,
All right,
our kids, our grandkids, they're in trouble. They're literally in trouble. I don't, they sit way too much with that little computer. Yeah.
I guess as a mom, what I would definitely recommend for my children, when I was reading a book on basically, what to give our children, and vitamin calcium, basically with K2, is very important when a child is little, because the bone growth, a lot of times children need orthodontics because their bone, like especially their top jaw, doesn't grow when there's a calcium deficiency. And you want to add K2 because if you don't add K2 to calcium, it stays in the blood, as I understand. And I didn't know that as my kids were growing up, and I mean, that would have been very useful for me. And we do, at this point, I would give them a multivitamin we have in our company. And as adults, we definitely need multivitamins, minerals, and good fats. And I remember speaking to you and Judy, and you mentioned that the older you get, the more protein we need. Do you want to explain that?
Well, again, as our body ages, there's just, Dr. Roni can probably explain this better than I can. Our bodies just react to nutrients differently, and the absorption rate and those vitamins are, as you said, so important to the absorption of your body. And as we age, I think a lot of seniors don't eat as much protein as they should. And we eat protein at every single meal. And even some of our snacks in the afternoons is a protein snack. Because we just feel protein has helped us with a lot of mental acuity, muscle, maintaining our muscle. Because I said, I'm trying to rebuild muscle now after my situation. So I need the protein because I need to rebuild that muscle right now. But Judy and I both eat a lot of protein and just feel it's one of those, we build our meals around that source of protein, whatever that is.
Right. Right. So, I mean, Dr. Roni, I mean, I feel that it is important to have protein, but I don't know. I did hear that it's based on your blood type. Do you believe in that?
Well, absolutely, because certain blood types need more protein than the other, like blood type O need more protein. They can metabolize it better. But what we're saying with Michael, what we're saying is that when we get older, there's 22 essential amino acids. That's when we say the word essential, that means you absolutely have to have it. So imagine the vegetarians that are older that don't get the essential. And on top of that, the older you get, you have what's called poor absorption and metabolism of the protein. Then on top of that, you have the opportunity to create less muscle. So you're in trouble. And that's what happens to them. So when that happens and you don't process it, you don't feel hungry. So sometimes you'll see, an elderly person that's really low in their protein status. They have no muscle status, and they're always getting sick because they're missing some of the essential amino acids, and there's 22 of them.
Please keep in touch and join our community, and join us next week, okay?